What is up, guys? It is KikiZilla101 here yet again. I'm back again for my second paleo review, and today we're going to be doing it on the Safari Limited 2017 Giganotosaurus. Now this review was requested by my good friend Cesar, aka Godzilla Fan 40. So thank you, Cesar, for requesting this figure, and remember, you guys can go ahead and request figures to be reviewed on this series as well, so just go ahead and leave some comments inside the comment section. I'll do my best to get those reviews out for you guys. Now before we get into the review for this guy, let's get some Paleo Facts on Giganotosaurus. Giganotosaurus, whose name means giant southern lizard, was a genus of large carnivorous theropod from the Carcharodontosauridae family that lived during the late Cretaceous period about 98 to 97 million years ago in what is now Patagonia. Giganotosaurus is one of the largest land predators ever, even outsizing Tyrannosaurus rex. It could have grown up to 46 feet in length, 13 feet tall at the hips, and weighing in at 8 to 9 tons when fully grown. Despite being larger than Tyrannosaurus, Giganotosaurus weighed less and was certainly faster. It is estimated to have been able to have run at 31.3 miles per hour. The most common and probable prey for Giganotosaurus were the massive titanosaurs of Patagonia, and while young titanosaurs were vulnerable, adults would have been walking fortresses. However, with the discovery of some close relatives of Giganotosaurus being found in groups, it's possible that Giganotosaurus could have hunted in packs of 6 to 12 individuals to take down adult titanosaurs. Alright, now with the Paleo Facts section out of the way, let's get straight into this review. First up, the pose. Now the pose on this guy is absolutely phenomenal. It's so well done, I am actually daring enough to say that it's Safari Limited's best pose on any of their figures ever. I'd even go as far as saying it's the best pose on any figure I've ever seen of a dinosaur ever. You can just truly see the dynamic flow of this guy. How he's swaying to the side, and he's got the S curve inside of his back line. How the tail is curving off to this side, and the head is elegantly going off to this side. The legs are even in a V shape towards the middle and almost straight in front of each other. The arms are almost splayed out to the side, almost as if it's ready to grasp something, and the way his mouth is gaped almost to maximum capacity and slightly slanted off to the side, it gives me an idea that this guy is probably chasing after something just off to the side of him, as you can see here. Probably just off into the front. The base even helps add to the pose. As you can see here, this foot is firmly planted inside the ground here, and this foot is arching up as he's like lifting up on just tips of his toes. And as we mentioned earlier, it's clearly in a running pose. This pose is just really well done. It's very obvious. I don't really have to explain it very much to get you guys an idea of how well this pose is done. I mean, just look at it. The legs and how the musculature is, pushing them forward. This thing honestly looks like it's just gonna run right off of the review table. I mean, a lot of people say that about some of these figures, but this one, I just really can't stress enough, this is the best pose I've seen on any figure ever. And that's why I'm not even gonna hesitate to give this figure a 5 out of 5 for its pose. Next is detail. Now as for detail on this figure, it's a bit all over the place. As you can see, it is a bit lacking and very smooth across the body, but there are minute scales kind of scattered about, and there are some bigger ones, so I have to give it credit for that. And definitely when you feel it, you can feel the detail to it. It's very similar to the 98 T-Rex in that respect. It's got very small detail, but it's definitely more smooth and not as defined as the Tyrannosaurus. While the T-Rex managed to mix the scales with the wrinkles a bunch, it seems like the wrinkles are very predominant, and even those are kind of lackluster and just kind of meld into the rest of the sculpt. There are the big essential wrinkles around the areas of movement, like right here around the leg. The neck is kind of wrinkling up around here because it's turning towards us, and so on and so forth. The wrinkles are very prominent and all over. However, the better parts of the detail is definitely to the face. You can see here the crest is done very fantastically well. There's all of the individual bumps to the crest. The crest extends to the nasal, over the nasal ridge. You can even see all the little bumps and lining around the eyes. Now the teeth on this guy are absolutely very well done. They even come up to rivaling the Tyrannosaurus from 98's teeth. I mean, this one's teeth and the 98 Tyrannosaurus from Carnegie have like the best teeth I've seen on any carnivorous theropod. They just are very well sculpted. They're very tiny and minute, but they definitely do look fragile, so I definitely would be careful with them. This figure, when I was at the museum, I actually specifically picked out because it had the best teeth out of all of the ones there. Some of the other ones do have some paint that melds the teeth together and doesn't look quite as well as this one. So do note that if you're ordering online and you can't really pick out your figure, you may get one with some matted teeth that don't look quite as good as this one. There's even the little scales on the fingers, as you can see here. However, the claws are lacking in any ridges or lines. lines. The detail is very good on the feet as well, as you can see all the scales here and all the claws. You can actually see how the feet sink into the mud here, and you can see how well done this base is done. I mean, it's very non-uniform along the edges of this base here. This foot is especially sunk in very well, and you can even see the big divots of how he's dragging his foot back as he's lifting it up. The musculature on this figure is actually done phenomenally well. It looks very bulky and definitely looks like it could support such a massive body, but it doesn't look overly ripped and defined. There are also some faint lines here on this little fleshy part. Forgive me for still not looking up what that is. There are also all these ridges on the roof of the mouth, and they extend to the back of the throat. The tongue doesn't really have much detail. You can see there are some little slight bumps to it. There's even a very nice cavity to the nostrils, as you can see there. Overall, the detail is pretty good on this figure. However, it is a bit lacking in some areas. I think the skin is very smooth. I mean, it is not very smooth to the touch, but it looks very smooth. It looks very plasticky, and the detail just kind of does fall apart in certain areas. I can't bring myself to give this one too high of a score because of the lacking of the details, and that's why this one is getting a 3.5 out of 5 for its detail. Now, for paint job. Now, the paint job on this guy is actually, it's not the best. I think the head is probably the best part of the paint, just as it is for the detail. I think the head just overall is very well done on this figure. You can see all the darker brown seeping through all these scales on this head crest here. It looks very nice, and it definitely makes the scaling more prominent. The eyes are done very well. They have a nice black and then the glossy paint to it to make it almost like shine, so it looks like it's alive. They also did this glossiness to the inside of the mouth, which is more prominent on the tongue, really. However, the shininess into the actual rest of the body does take away from it and doesn't make it stand out as much. I think by far the best paint on this figure is the eye and the teeth. The teeth are done extremely well, and there's very minimal bleeding of the paint. You can see just a little bit there, and it's mainly a problem at the bottom where you can kind of see it come over onto the top of the lip. It is also an issue on this other side, as you can see here, but it's not that big of an issue, and it's mostly just kind of on the inside and on this little lip here. However, from a distance, it's not very noticeable, at least on the front, the top part of the jaw, but definitely this lip part does become more obvious from a distance. This guy also has some paint on the mud here, as you can see, a lighter gray, almost brown, and then there's a lot of dark brown kind of mixed in. The paint for the mud does leave up onto the feet here. He's swishing around the mud, and it's kind of like, you know, leaving marks back up on his feet. However, it doesn't do that to the paint on the toes. The toe paint is not very well executed. There's a lot of the actual claws that aren't painted there, and you could say it's just the mud covering it up, but this whole like part of the foot here is like covered in mud that it was deep in there, and so this is just not very well done in my opinion. But by far my biggest issue is actually the entire majority part of the paint scheme. Now don't get me wrong, I actually love this pattern. It's very unique to put a zebra pattern on a big carnivorous theropod, and I do like the colors they used here. I like this bluish gray that they used for the majority of the body, and this creamy white that they used for the belly and the claws. However, the brown is my main issue. I do like the color they chose, it's just that it's not very well executed at all. As you can see, there's two different browns here. There's a very dark brown up here and a very light one that's pretty much everywhere else on the body. It looks very watered down and not very well executed, especially in areas like this, and on the face. It doesn't look very well done. The darker brown is also layered over on top of the watery brown, and so it just makes it look very bad and poorly executed, almost like a toddler painted this. This is what the darker brown should look like along the tail here. So overall, this guy's paint job is a little choppy in many areas, but it does look good overall, especially from a distance. It doesn't look bad, and you can't really tell that this is there. So, you know, on your shelf, it doesn't look bad, and the paint scheme definitely does make it stand out from the rest of your collection, and that's why I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. It's not the best score in the world, but it's still a decent one. This figure does have some good paint. It's just, you know, not very good compared to the modern day standards. And now for paleontological accuracy. Now for paleontological accuracy, this guy is definitely a very accurate figure, and I've seen a lot of other people praise it for that. However, this guy does have a couple issues that I don't really see anybody pointing out. Now first off, I want to compliment this guy with his proportions, which are very well done, and just the overall look and feel of the figure. There's no like drooping of the tail. It's very rigid and well done, and the musculature looks very good as well. There's also no shrink wrapping of any sort on this figure. figure. The V shape to the feet is actually a bit of a problem because you see, we know that theropods did not walk with one foot in front of the other. These feet should not be in front of each other. However, I do have an excuse for this figure because, as I mentioned earlier in the view, I'm assuming just because of the way it looks like he is about to shift his weight and dive to the side. And so if you're looking at it like that, then this isn't much of an issue with the feet in front of each other because he's turning, and this foot will be coming out to the side to help him propel himself to the off to the right there. However, I still wanted to just bring this problem up. A big compliment that I can actually say from in person is that when I went to go see the Giganotosaurus skeleton at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science, when they had their Ultimate Dinosaurs exhibit there, I got to see the Giganotosaurus in person. The rib cage of it, which was very weirdly tall. It wasn't very wide and bulky. This is very well captured inside this figure. So if you guys want to see what I'm talking about, go check out my video. The link will be in the description, and also there will be a card up in the corner right there. However, now we have to get on to the issues with this figure. Number one, there's a lacking of a cloaca, which, Safari has set a standard that they're adding cloacas, which is a very big scientific accuracy point that they need to stay on top of. Unfortunately, it's just lacking here. It doesn't have anything present. Now, the cloaca is my minor issue, but this is a bigger issue for me. The claws are extremely poorly done. They're not accurate at all. There should be a big claw at this inner finger here, which also should be far more bulky than these two fingers. And these two should be about half the size. They're also just like, almost like big Freddy Krueger claws or something, or just like sticks coming out of the fingers. They don't look like claws at all. And I can't say that this is, them trying to be child safe, because it's very poorly executed if that's so, because their Velociraptor, their feathered Velociraptor from 2017 has far better child safe claws, and they look accurate and fine. The one issue that I don't see anybody pointing out, and this may just be because I'm such a big fan of Giganotosaurus and I've done a lot of research on it, is that this head shape is actually incorrect. It's too thin and long. It's not tall enough. Now, if you want to see what a more accurate head representation of a Giganotosaurus should look like, look no further than the old Carnegie one. And yes, I said the Carnegie one is more accurate with the head. So this is just a little too short and a little too elongated. I mean, the length isn't really much of a problem, but compared to its height, it is a problem. So unfortunately, the head shape is wrong here. Despite the fact that I do like it and it looks good, I can't help but comment that it is an incorrect shape. Now, we do only have fragmentary remains of Giganotosaurus' skull, but it is enough to tell us that it was definitely not this short, and it was definitely much taller than this figure's skull here. However, even though that I have those major issues just because I'm a big Giganotosaurus fan, and these claws definitely do get on my nerves, I can't really say that it's poorly executed in its entirety. It's a very well done figure and very scientifically accurate. It does have some minor issues, which I can see some sculptor accidentally slipping up on, except these claws, I can't really forgive them for that. But the cloaca, maybe they just forgot, and the skull, it's a minor problem. It still looks good. That's the main thing. And that's why I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 5 for its paleontological accuracy. Finally, bonus points. Now, for the bonus points on this figure, this guy is going to be our first review on the channel that is actually going to be getting points in this round. So this guy is going to get 1 point for this base, because the base, I feel like, really does add to this figure, and I feel like this is a prime example of what a base can do for a figure. And so it just looks really good compared to any other base that I've ever seen in any of these companies, especially Collecta. Collecta is very lacking on their bases. Now, it doesn't compare to anything like the Vitae's bases, but those are much higher quality figures and have, more of a budget to add to the base. This figure's dimensions are 15 inches long, 4 inches high, and 2 inches wide. Now, as for size comparisons, first up are our two control size comparisons. First is the Safari Limited 2015 U Tyrannus. There they are side by side. Next up is the Collecta 2011 Torosaurus. There they are side by side. And there are both of our control size comparisons next to this Giganotosaurus. Now, as for the appropriate size comparisons, first up I want to bring out Safari's last attempt at a Giganotosaurus, which is their Carnegie one. And you can see here what I was talking about, how the skull is much taller, and it is actually a little bit shorter, but by far this is a far more accurate interpretation of the skull, at least inside the overall silhouette of it. Overall, this one is probably more accurate just because it has less issues that this one does, but still, just the overall head shape, you can kind of see what I was talking about there. There they are side by side. Next up is another 2017 figure, the Feathered Velociraptor. There they are side by side. Here it is next to the Carnegie 1988 Apatosaurus. There they are side by side, and I picked this one because I don't really have any other large sauropods, which would have been Giganotosaurus's probable prey back then. Now for the total score of this figure, it got 18 points out of 20 points. That's a very good score and is equivalent to an A- inside of my grading scale. But also, this figure gets my seal of approval. And I know this is my second review on the channel. I've already given out 2 of these seal of approvals, but this figure is absolutely fantastic. And my good friend Cesar, who requested this figure, just wanted me to pick it, and it's one of the best figures in my collection. The pose is absolutely fantastic, and it's probably one of the biggest reasons why this figure is getting my seal of approval. Like I said before, I've just never seen a figure with a better pose. So yet again, I want to thank Cesar, aka Godzilla Fan 40, my good friend, for requesting this figure's review. And to remember, you guys can request reviews for yourself. Just remember to leave a comment in the comment section below, and I will try to get to your review as soon as I can. Remember to vote inside the corner card up here and tell me how you guys feel about this figure. And to be more specific, let me know inside the comment section about your exact thoughts about this guy. But wait, you guys can vote for one of these 5 figures to be reviewed next on Paleo Reviews, and you can do that by clicking on the poll up in the card in the corner of the screen right there. Alright, so thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye-bye!